Good morning and welcome to this licensing hearing panel. For the first agenda item, it's a election of chairperson. Have I got any nominations? Councillor Howcroft-Sott?
Yeah, could I nominate Hazel, please, Councillor?
Is that seconded?
Brown.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, you're the chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to outline the process for this morning's hearing. We'll have the application outlined by our licensing officer. Then the applicant or your representative speaks in support of the application and calls any witnesses. The objectors ask the applicant or the representative and witnesses questions. The panel asks the applicant or the representatives and witnesses questions. The objectors speak about their representation and call witnesses. The applicant or representatives ask the objectors questions and the panel asks questions. And then we ask if there's anything anybody wants to add. And the decision then is taken. We'll advise whether we're going to tell you today or whether we're going to be able to tell you within 5 working days. Thank you. If I may...
Can we do apologies and record of meeting?
Of course.
Thank you.
Oh, we haven't got a record. Can I say if there's any apologies for absence?
Councillor Brake is the fourth member.
Well, we're core,
Yeah.
and so that's lovely. Thank you for that. And may I sign outside of this meeting the record of the last meeting, if appropriate? Thank you. Okay. I'll now ask Katie if she wouldn't mind outlining this application for us, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. On the 25th November 2024, we received a new premises licence application for the Royal Supermarket, 56 Balmoral Road, Gillingham. An appendix of the cumulative impact assessment called Gillingham High Street can be found as Appendix A of this report, is attached for information as the premises is located within this designated area. This can be found on pages 11 to 14. This application is for the sale by retail of alcohol as off sales only, daily between the hours of 9 AM and 11 PM. The application includes the operating schedule, which details the conditions the applicant is offering to promote the licensing objectives. This applicant has submitted these as a separate document. A copy of the application, the operating schedule and the proposed licensing plan can be found at Appendix B on pages 15 to 32. During the consultation, we received 2 representations. We received a representation from Public Health on the 12th of December. This was in relation to 2 of the licensing objectives, the prevention of crime and disorder and the prevention of public nuisance. This can be found at Appendix C on pages 33 to 40. We've received a representation from Kent Police on the 19th of December. This was in relation to 3 of the licensing objectives, the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety and the prevention of public nuisance, and can be found at Appendix D on pages 41 to 42. It is for the panel to decide on the appropriate action for this application, taking into account all the evidence brought to your attention, both written and oral, alongside the Licensing Act 2003 and its associated guidance. The panel can decide to grant the licence as applied for, amend the application, for example, changing the hours, add or amend conditions, or refuse the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. It's now over to the applicant to speak in support of the application.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors. Unsurprisingly, today we are asking you to grant the application. And you may have a little sense of deja vu, as this isn't the first time an application for this premises has been before the licensing subcommittee. An application was made and heard in December 2020 for this premises. And you're probably asking yourselves, well, what's changed between now and then? So the major difference between now and then is that in the meantime, Mr. Sebastian, he's been running the shop there for about 4 years, and his previous history he ran a shop around the road. So he's very familiar with the area, he's familiar with the issues, and for this application, he's given it a bit more consideration than the previous application. So we got in contact a few months ago, or a few months prior to the application really, and the way I like to work is if you said, I'd like to apply for a premises licence here, what we'd always do is research the local area, have a look at the local policies, and then give an honest opinion before anyone spends any money about whether or not it's likely to be granted. So for this application, we sat down and we discussed the various policies that are in place. And one of the considerations obviously was the cumulative impact policy. So within the application, we've added in 3 main conditions that we hope will reduce the impact and lessen the likelihood of the licensing objectives being undermined. So the primary one, no alcohol over 5.5% for beers, lager, ciders. Secondary, no sales in multi-packs. And then thirdly is the area within the premises designated for alcohol to be no more than 15%. So within the premises, it's effectively going to be shelves for spirits and a small fridge. There's no danger if you were to grant this application of the whole premises turning into a fully fledged off licence. This is a convenience store with the sale of alcohol attached to it. Also, as part of what we discussed was enhanced training for Mr. Sebastian and any other members of staff. So I did circulate an initial draft of a training manual, but I appreciate it was yesterday. It doesn't really matter what it contains at the moment. I wouldn't expect you to go through all of it. But what we aim to cover is not only the kind of basics of the Licensing Act in terms of Challenge 25 and underage sales. What we're going to do is enhance the training slightly in terms of what can we seek to include within the area to make sure that the staff are really aware of what are the issues around sort of street drinking and antisocial behaviour and how to deter those persons from even seeing this venue as a location where they might get alcohol from. So we've gone through those elements that you would need to look at and consider in terms of, I mean, there's a kind of stereotypical street drinker, but there's also those little nuances in terms of what they may be looking for. So one of the big things around that condition with multi-pack sales. So multi-pack sales, that condition has been added. It's not to encourage people to purchase more alcohol. What it seeks to discourage is those persons with only a few pennies in their pocket spending the last of what they have on alcohol. So all those little nuances will be included in the training. The training itself, Mr. Sebastian, English isn't his first language, so we've translated it to Malayalam. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Yeah. So that he can fully understand all those little elements of what will be in the training. If you're minded to grant the application, I'll also come down with him and his staff and go through a full training session, train the trainer, show him all the documentation he needs. I think one of the differences between this hearing and the last hearing, Mr. Sebastian appointed a barrister for the day, who was obviously very good at her job, but was just here for the day. In terms of what I offer, it was a referral that Mr. Sebastian came to me. So with anyone that I deal with, there's always that ongoing support and training. He's got my direct number. He can send me a WhatsApp if he's got any issues. I think really those considerations in relation to your local policy, I suppose we've got the overarching Licensing Act and the consideration for yourselves is, will this application undermine those licensing objectives? We don't think it will, because he's going to have robust conditions that are very succinct. They don't go overboard with those conditions. He's going to have support with training. Relating that to the Section 182 guidance, which for hearings kind of suggests that you should seek to focus any hearings on what the main issues are raised within the representations. The representations really just seem to be about the cumulative impact policy and then your cumulative impact policy itself. And I think everyone fully understands, and I fully understand the representations that have been made, that the policy is in place for a reason. However, there is always that exception to the rule, and the policy shouldn't be completely rigid. I think what we would hope you to consider is that, you have got a small independent shop that wishes to operate in Gillingham. He has been operating for the last 4 years, simply as a convenience store. That is the main trading aim of the shop, and alcohol will just be an ancillary offer. In terms of the application, we've discussed it a little bit further. And if you were minded to grant the application, one of the considerations we've also looked at is the hours. So where we've gone from 9 a.m. till 11 p.m, if you were minded to grant the application, and from the two of us having a chat about it, the hours of the sale of alcohol could be reduced, and it wouldn't be detrimental to the business offering. That an opening time of 11 a.m. may be something that you might consider to deter any early morning drinking, make sure all the school kids are gone, and then a 10 p.m. terminal hour for the sale of alcohol as well, to discourage any alcohol sales within whatever nighttime economy exists within the area. That concludes our presentation, and
Thank you for that. I'll now ask Claire to, you speaking first, Claire, yeah.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning. My name is Claire Hercombe, here from Public Health. My colleague Barbara Murray put forward the objection on behalf of our Director of Public Health. Unfortunately, she's unable to make it today, so I'm here to relay her information. So the premise here is located within the Gillingham Community of Impact Policy, and I'll refer to that as the SIP going forward. This covers the Gillingham High Street and the surrounding area. There is strong evidence of high levels of alcohol-related crime, disorder and public nuisance associated with a density of off-licence premises in the Gillingham SIP area. I'd like to remind you that the SIP was reviewed and it was also renewed in May, and the data supporting the policy was agreed by the Licensing Committee. The Gillingham SIP borders some of the most deprived areas in Medway. With regards to crime and disorder, there is evidence of alcohol-related crime, disorder and nuisance from both Kent Police and Public Health. Public Health is particularly concerned about less visible alcohol-related issues such as domestic abuse, which is high in this area. Domestic abuse is a strong link to alcohol consumption. Deprivation in this area is relevant to the application, as there are very high levels of crime deprivation, as shown in the graphics included in the representations at page 34. Crime deprivation is relevant as certain types of crime are more associated with alcohol consumption than others. Among crimes are regarded as being alcohol-related are violence against wounds and assaulting with or without injury, verbal and physical abuse, sexual offences, harassment, domestic abuse, as I've stated, and public disturbance and nuisance, including street drinking, noise, littering, public urination, and defecation and intimidation. There are also harms to children, including assault, witnessing of violences, and all sorts of abuse. Driving offences, including drink driving. Gillingham South has the second highest rate for crime per 1,000 residents in Medway, and Gillingham North is the 6th highest. The most prevalent crimes are violent crime and antisocial behaviour, both of which are associated with alcohol consumption. With regards to public nuisance, as mentioned before, there is a general problem in the area with street drinking, antisocial behaviour and associated litter, with discarded cans and bottles and broken glass and evidence, as I said, of public urination and defecation in the alleyways and public areas. There is a public space protection order in place for Gillingham Town due to, in part, the alcohol-related antisocial behaviour, a map which is included in our representation at page 36. Public health staff have walked around this area in response to this application, and generally throughout the year in support of evidence gathering for the SIP and licence applications. Alcohol-related litter can be seen throughout the High Street and surrounding area, as evidenced by the photographs attached in page 38. The areas where there are accumulations of this litter are the alleyways of Borough Road, Duncan Road, Balmoral Gardens, Railway Street, alleyways off Fox Street, Jeffrey Street, but particularly the communal gardens to the flats, in the flower beds at the junction of Jeffrey Street and Victoria Street, and in the flower beds at St Mark's Church, There is also in that location a very strong smell of urine and evidence of defecation in the flower beds by the church and in the alleyways of Balmoral Road. Again, all areas where there's evidence of public drinking. There is also the car parks and alleyways off Green Street. Discarded cans and bottles can be seen throughout the area, at the sides of the road, in the gardens and in public flower beds. Public health staff have seen people drinking alcohol in public whilst walking around or sitting on benches and walls in this area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Oisin, do you have any questions for public health?
No questions.
Thank you. I now move on to the other objectors. Thank you.
Morning, Chair, councillors, colleagues. Some of my reps are in support of and echo slightly my public health colleague, however, not to labour the point. So the premises is located near the centre of Gillingham High Street, opposite Gillingham train station. There is an alleyway that runs alongside the premises, linking it with Balmoral Park. This is an area which is associated with street drinkers and antisocial behaviour. Gillingham High Street is a busy town centre with a significant number of retail outlets, many of which already sell alcohol on an off-sale basis. Gillingham High Street currently forms part of a cumulative impact policy area, SIP. This area suffers with a high volume of alcohol-related crime, disorder and public nuisance. It is also covered by a public space protection order. In particular, issues in this area relate to antisocial behaviour and street drinking, a concerning issue which can directly be linked to off-licence premises. Other causal links to off-licence premises include violent assaults, verbal and physical abuse, sexual offences and harassment, domestic abuse, drink driving, public disturbances, public decency, urination, litter, noise, harm towards vulnerable people and children. To the applicant's credit, the application acknowledges the existence of the fact that it falls within a SIP and stress areas, and quantifies this by adding that the alcohol on sale thereof and sale thereof would be of a nature less appealing to street drinkers. They plan on selling multi-packs only, as stated by Mr. Daly, only, and less than 5.5% alcohol by volume. No spirit miniatures will be sold, and the alcohol will not occupy more than 50% of the shop's floor surface. Spirits will be kept behind the counter, and there will be no special offers on alcohol. So that's noteworthy in itself. But notwithstanding, Kent Police are concerned that granting of another off-licence in this immediate area could only make alcohol even more widely available and is likely to attract further street drinkers and antisocial behaviour, resulting in issues worsening and becoming a greater problem. So the information contained within Medway Council's own statement of licensing policy, and hence the policy governing or covering the SIP areas within it, has all been agreed, accepted and ratified. The policy is reviewed with regularity and is currently in effect. The expression, "There is a rebuttable presumption of refusal of the application by the authority in all but exceptional circumstances, unless the applicant can demonstrate that the premises would not adversely add to nor impact on the cumulative impact of the area." This is quite rightly not to be taken lightly. So the term exceptional may be considered as subjective, but there is a definitive meaning. And even if an application is a good one, does not necessarily mean it's exceptional, which in other words can be described as unusual, not typical, rare, meets a quality of an unusually high degree, or goes far beyond what is usual in magnitude or degree. If yourselves, Chair, if your good selves are of the opinion that the application in its current form is exceptional, or that the applicant themselves demonstrate to you how the premises will not add to the issues accepted by the authority to be true, then of course my objections are in effect null and void. However, it is the opinion of Kent Police that the application does not meet this very high standard of criteria at the moment, and that the applicant has not demonstrated how supplying more alcohol to the people of Gillingham will not have any impact on the existing issues. And for this reason, we respectfully request that this application is rejected. Thank you.
Thank you, PC Smuts. Mr. Daly, do you have any questions for the police, please?
Only a couple of ones. Just in terms of the local area, are there any off-watch schemes or disc schemes or any sort of crime reduction schemes for off licences in the area that the applicant could participate in?
Is that something that you would have researched prior to today?
I couldn't find anything.
Okay. There are schemes in existence, Safe Medway partnerships. Say again? You said disc, that's the Safe Medway. Oh, yeah. Do you want to field that one?
Yeah, there is a thing called the Safer Medway Partnership where you can pay to be a member. I think it's £1 a day, and you get given radios to communicate with each other. And there's an app called DISC, which I think you mentioned, which gives everyone ideas of who the shoplifters are, who the suspects, who the people to avoid are. So it's quite a good network for local shops.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And I suppose it's kind of a leading question a little bit. If the licence were to be granted, would a condition added to the licence that ensured that the applicant participated in that scheme be something else that, if it were granted, would be something the police would consider?
Certainly, it would be something that the subcommittee might like to consider. I have heard some good things, and I'm sure the list is not exhaustive, that Mr. Daly has already suggested, and that's something that you might want to consider, Chair. That would be for the subcommittee. Thank you.
Is that the end of your questions for the objectors? Thank you. I now ask, sorry. They asked the objectors. Yeah. Has the panel got any questions for the objectors? Councillor Scott, sorry, Joe.
Yes, just thank you for your paperwork and explaining the situation. In the pack, photographs speak more than words, really. I would say that I went and looked in the areas, and there are lots of people hanging around, and you know, it doesn't look safe, and there's so many school children. Have you had any, have you got any statistics about children underage drinking in Gillingham?
Not specifically here today. Thank you.
And just to echo that, not specifically today.
Panel have no more questions for the objectors. Can we ask the applicant? Yeah. Are there any questions for the applicant, please?
How many people are employed in your shop, and will they all benefit from the training that you're rolling out?
Only one person. Me and another person is there.
Can I ask you a question around the exception, or sorry, why you think that this might be an exceptional application, while it covers all the issues we would find in a good application, and And I also thank you for coming here and demonstrating that you're keen to be involved. I'm surprised that you're not more involved in the business of joining these organisations, but maybe it was just you didn't know about them. And I think that it's very good that your advisor is also helping you to, if you like, be a good neighbour. But my question is, what do you see as exceptional in this?
I suppose with, excuse me, and I don't want to go into sort of, so you've got a legal advisor over there, but there was an appeal for an application in Leicester, and it was back in 2013, where Sainsbury's supermarkets applied for an application within a cumulative impact zone. It went to appeal at the Magistrates Court, and the court judged that the appeal should be upheld in favour of Sainsbury's, because within that decision, it's not a High Court decision, so it's not as binding as other things. However, they did say that whilst the City Council had an exceptional, similar to yours, rebuttal policy, that actually the fundamentals of the Licensing Act is the grant of the licence going to undermine the licensing objectives. So we obviously believe that with the training and support he's going to receive and the conditions, the licensing objectives won't be upheld. But what is the exceptional thing? I think there's two elements to it. One element is that personally, I wouldn't want this gentleman to undertake this business and then cause an issue, because professionally, next time I spoke to the police for a separate application, they would quite rightly go, well, hang on, you turned up here today and then you disappeared, so how can we trust you in the future? The kind of secondary thing with this is I'm quite happy to provide training. I'm quite happy to come down and train any extra members of staff. All the training is completely free. He's going to get all the due diligence documents he needs to make sure that he's ticking every single box within his application to say, yeah, I am completely 100% compliant. I had a premises recently in a different borough, which went to hearing, and one of the conditions that got added as part of that from the subcommittee was that the premises shall annually have an independent sort of conditions check, someone to make sure that all the conditions are being ticked. That's not me taking for business. I wouldn't expect you to say Rushing Daily has to go down there every year and charge the client for a visit to make sure he's ticking all the boxes. However, conditions like that do assist in your determination to go and actually, this is an individual who is willing to go above and beyond to make sure that they are not going to impact on the issues that are already in Gillingham. And then the other consideration is where, if you were to grant this licence, what you will have is another off licence in the area. And I appreciate the concerns, especially of public health, that actually, well, perhaps the increased sale of alcohol will increase the issues. But what I found, in a previous life, I was a police licensing officer in the Met Police on a number of boroughs in the central licensing team. And what we implemented in one cumulative impact zone was a reducing the strength scheme. There was about 10 off licences, all with various conditions on the licence, some restrictive, some completely grandfathered in from the old Licensing Act with 0 conditions on there whatsoever. And through a process of enforcement and engagement, effectively all of those off licences then ended up with very similar conditions to what we've got here around multi-sales, or multi-pack sales, and the reduction in the ABV. What we found within that area is where there was a concentration of street drinkers, there was almost a pack mentality, so issues such as littering, antisocial behaviour was concentrated in a small area. Because the availability of alcohol within that central area wasn't so freely available, what happened was those street drinkers then dispersed. And humans are funny animals. We tend to go to the closest, shortest distance we can, because that's the nature of us, and we look for convenience. But what that meant was then that pack mentality and those issues where they encouraged each other dispersed, but also reduced in those smaller areas and reduced those instances of street drinking. And I suppose if you were to grant this licence, yes, it would be another off licence in the area. There is always the option to review the licence and revoke the licence if the conditions aren't being adhered to. But equally, potentially in the future, you may well have off licences within that Gillingham area, all with robust conditions that will discourage antisocial behaviour, street drinking, and elements such as that.
Just one other question. Have you actually been to the premises and seen the location?
No.
Has anybody got anything further that they want to add? Thank you, Claire. And thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to pick up on the point that you highlighted around the strengths of the alcohol being sold there. You'll see in the evidence pack that was submitted from Public Health that a vast majority of those images in there were actually of low-strength beers and ciders at 5.5%. And also there's evidence to say that just by reducing the strength will have very little or no impact on street drinking. I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, just to clarify the point about up-to-date statistics, can't say it, about alcohol in that area, I did inquire of our analyst team, and it can take 6 to 8 weeks to get a detailed picture. So with this coming, the notice of these hearings are obviously less than that. So it's very hard for us to get very up-to-date figures.
Thank you very much for that. It'll be useful going forward, I think, for us to be reminded that we'll have something maybe that's accurate to 6 to 8 weeks, because I think that's fair for everybody. Thank you. Anybody else with any more questions, comments to make? So we ask everybody to leave.
I suppose just to sum up, I think I don't envy your decision today because you've got a hard one, but I think I would hope that by coming here today and presenting Mr. Sebastian shows that he's serious about operating as a responsible business in the area.
Well, thank you very much for that. We do endeavour to do our decisions on the day. So if you would like to withdraw, and we'll deliberate and call you back in. Sometimes some come back, sometimes some don't. Thank you. We have reached a decision, and I'm going to read it. The panel, having considered all the written evidence and listened carefully to the oral evidence presented by the applicant and the objectors and the applicant's representative, having done so, we do not consider anything exceptional about this application. Although the application is good, and we recognise that the applicant has identified it's within a SIP area and has suggested conditions to address the concerns and some of the issues within the area. This doesn't reach the high test of exceptional, and the conditions, unfortunately, don't address the rebuttable presumption. It's our view that it doesn't meet the high test of the exceptionality, and the panel has decided to refuse the application for the premise licence at the Royal Supermarket, 56 Balmoral Road, Gillingham. Thank you. Sorry, you will get the written decision within 5 working days from our Democratic Services officers. Thank you.